Alcohol and getting drunk actually saved my life. I've had a strange relationship with alcohol. When I was in my 20s, I drank, but I didn't like the feeling nearly as much as smoking marijuana. I didn't like the hangovers. I didn't like the fact that you had to drink a bunch of unhealthy liquid. Plus, drinking signifies the end of the night. I didn't want to drink and go to sleep. I wanted to be creative with writing and laughing and thinking. I would have much rather smoked marijuana, but my parents were vehemently against me doing that. It was an automatic societal response and just a lack of knowledge about it back then. Everybody thought that it was just as bad as alcohol and everything. You might say, just don't drink or smoke anything. Real quickly, the reason is because my body was constantly in fight or flight mode, and the medicines the doctors were prescribing me weren't working, and weed and alcohol were the only things that would bring my body out of fight or flight mode. I remember I had this doctor's appointment one time when I was I want to say I was 18. My mom was there, and this was like a couple of years after the wreck. I remember the doctor asked me, "So you're addicted to painkillers, right?" And I was like, "No, I smoke marijuana." But the doctor kind of smirked at me like he didn't believe me. He was like, you like to smoke weed better than painkillers and drinking?" And I was like, "Yep, no comparison, doc." My parents saved me from being addicted to painkillers by not letting the hospital pump me full of them while I was in the hospital. Anyway, the point is that weed was always the most help to me back then. At this point in my comeback attempt, I didn't need anything else. I didn't need any kind of pills. I didn't need alcohol. I just needed the weed, and it was the healthiest option. But I was forbidden from weed back then. Everybody thought it was terrible, but well-meaning people constantly pushed me towards more addictive alternatives. I was also taking Adderall back then by prescription, which is crazy to me. I wasn't allowed to have weed, alcohol, or painkillers, but amphetamines are cool. Those are all good. I couldn't have anything that actually helped, and I could only have things that didn't help. I'm kind of making light of this a little bit, but this was an unimaginably horrible situation. I couldn't have anything that helped, and I could only have things that didn't help. And this just went on and on, by the way, for 20 years. It just went on and on is the point. I mean, I don't take Adderall anymore. I took it for a very short time. And to add insult to injury, my parents and everyone in my family were constantly telling me that my decisions were the problem. No offense to anyone on this, but it's actually really important. The only thing my parents cared about was whether I believed in God or not, and drug use and zero tolerance about all things, and they cared about not being enablers. Those are the things they cared about. They were too focused on being absolutely sure they weren't being one of those enabling types. Enabling was a big word being thrown around our house back then, a lot. So instead of enabling me to smoke weed, I would stay up all night geeking out to prescribed amphetamines. Seems like a weird strategy, basically encouraging me to become a criminal. They were just pushing me away from all my good options and towards all bad options, and that it's not exactly going to turn somebody into a good Samaritan. So when I was 18, all I needed was weed for medicine. As I got older, and weed was harder and harder for me to get, so over time I grew to need alcohol all the time. And then I had to work really hard on quitting alcohol. And it was all up to me in the face of people constantly telling me I wasn't good enough. So I wasn't allowed to have those medications from a doctor, and I wasn't allowed to have weed, and not being able to have weed was the reason why I needed those pills from the doctor. It's like my entire life was a huge catch-22.